Hello guys, my name is NaToSaphiX, and today we have another video, and this time it is yet another video for Play.gg. I'll be your host for today's video, where we try to answer the question, where is YEKINDAR headed? Looking at the world ranking, we can see Outsiders, YEKINDAR's former team, at number 16. I think it's safe to assume that YEKINDAR is headed for an upgrade, so we'll only be taking a look at the teams that are ranked higher on the world ranking. But before making this video, I was thinking to myself, how am I realistically going to predict where YEKINDAR is headed when I don't even know what languages he speaks? So I came up with a genius solution. I asked him a question. Latvian, Russian, English. We know that the CSGO scene is filled with Latvian speaking teams, but could we find a Russian or English speaking one? So I took a look at the world ranking, and I'm going to be going through every single team once at a time. And so, as a wise woman once said, now from the top, make it drop. That's a FaZe Clan. Now, the fact that FaZe Clan is number 1 in the world currently and has been winning a lot lately, for example, the Major, and the player that YEKINDAR would probably come into trade with is Rain, the current Major MVP, I find it highly unlikely that he would go to FaZe. But enjoy this highlight anyway. And so, for the reasons listed, I find it highly unlikely that YEKINDAR is headed to FaZe next, at least at the current moment in time. So let us instead take a look at the number 2 team, Na'Vi. Na'Vi just removed their in-game leader Boomich from the active lineup just a few days ago. YEKINDAR is definitely not an IGL, but could someone else on Na'Vi take on the mantle? As I was making this video, a report from another CSGO website came out saying that Na'Vi are looking to change Electronic into an in-game leader. A map like Nuke, which is an uncommon one for YEKINDAR and Outsiders especially, is one where the roles would actually be very balanced just taking in YEKINDAR directly. As it stands, Electronic and Boomich are the ones who have been taking the outside area of the map together. Electronic could obviously easily just keep his current role, and YEKINDAR, who is an aggressive player just like Boomich, could potentially slot into Boomich's current role. And that all sounds very positive. But it is rumored that the reason for Boomich's removal from the active roster of Na'Vi is because he is a Russian citizen living in Russia and paying Russian taxes. And Na'Vi, a Ukrainian organization, is not interested in supporting the Russian government. So why am I telling you this? Well, YEKINDAR is obviously not a Russian citizen and is therefore not paying Russian taxes, but Virtus.pro, who own YEKINDAR's contract, are Russian owned, and Na'Vi are not interested in paying a buyout fee to a Russian owned company. Because of this, I'm giving Na'Vi a big yellow question mark. It would honestly, from a performance point of view, be the best fit, but there are some terms outside of YEKINDAR's powers that could come into play. I have also given ENCE a big red X. I don't think they have the economy to offer YEKINDAR a salary that would convince him onto this project, and also ENCE's business model seems to be much more about trying to find a talent who has maybe been tested in FPL or in some matches and trying to turn him into a world beater. I don't think at this current moment in time ENCE are interested in making changes either. For NIP, I've given them a big yellow question mark as well. I think they do have the funds to actually pick up a player of YEKINDAR's caliber. We saw that with when they signed Device, for example. But I don't think they're going to be willing to change their entire language of choice just for one player. And also I think role-wise he's not that good of a fit in NIP. So I find this highly unlikely, but they get a question mark anyway because it could potentially happen, but I find it very unlikely. For Spirit, I've given them a big red X. First of all, with how they just performed at the recent Major, I don't think they're looking to make changes. And for YEKINDAR's side of things as well, I would see this more of a side grade than an upgrade. Spirit basically only had this one really great tournament, which was the Major, which is why they're number 5. But we haven't seen if they're able to keep it up over a longer period of time. So I don't think either party is currently interested. For Heroic, it is a heroic colored symbol. It's an X. Heroic, I think, do definitely have the funds to pick up YEKINDAR, but I don't think they'll be changing away from a Danish lineup anytime soon. I don't think either party is really interested, and I don't think Heroic is looking to make changes currently. Furia is another question mark. They do have the funds to pick up YEKINDAR, I think, and we have seen them speak English before when they picked up Junior. In terms of playstyle, I think this is actually a really good fit for both parties. It gets a question mark because it could potentially work, but could it happen? Probably not. G2 gets a green check mark, and that is for a number of reasons. One of them being that they are definitely one of the organizations that have the funds to actually afford YEKINDAR. They have shown in the past that they are willing to splurge on big name players. But in terms of roles, I'm not quite sure how it's gonna work out. I see Nico and YEKINDAR as sort of the same type of player, and I'm worried that whoever will get Jax's roles will suffer a lot statistically. G2 have shown in the past a willingness to pick up extra star players instead of trying to balance the team role-wise, so I guess it could happen, which is why we're giving it a green check mark, but I'm not quite sure that this is what G2 is missing. My honest opinion is that it would not be that good of a fit, but it is probably one of the most likely ones. I'm gonna throw a green check mark at Cloud9. This is one of those teams where you could add YEKINDAR to the team, add a ton of firepower, and remove your statistically worst performing player, in this case Intos. Role-wise, Cloud9 is pretty balanced. You have Nafany, which is a pretty aggressive player. Then you have Shiro, who is a very passive player. You have Hobbit, who can kind of do it all. He can be passive or aggressive, but he's like the lurk type player. He's creating a lot of space still. Then you have Exile, who is, in my opinion, more of like an outer area player, like a fringe player playing on the outskirts of the map. And then you have Intos, who is the team's support player and who is just trying to be the glue between the players. I don't necessarily think this team needs to make changes, but I just think if you add YEKINDAR to this team, you get a whole lot more firepower, and having a hyper-aggressive player countering sort of the playstyle of Shiro would add another dimension to this team. Not only that, for example on Inferno, which is one of YEKINDAR's best maps, he would be able to take over the sort of entry man on B role, which is right now Exile. Since Exile anyway plays apps on CT side, YEKINDAR could just slot right into his role on the B side instead of Intos, and I think it actually fixes a few of the potential problems Cloud9 could have. Instead, Exile could kind of be the follow-up man on Banana, be more supportive and have more impact in the late rounds, which I think he's better at. So I think, at least for the Inferno, this could actually get Cloud9 to become a better team. This is why I give them a green checkmark in the first place, yeah. Vitality is another possible candidate. They do have the funds to pick up a player like YEKINDAR, and Vitality have been a little bit shaky and I would say even disappointing in recent times. You have already Dupree, Magisk, Apex and Suvo. You have the young guy Misuta, who seems sometimes to still have a lot to learn. And you would probably be able to switch those two players, Misuta and YEKINDAR. You have a more aggressive player in YEKINDAR. You have an overall on paper fantastic lineup. The only thing is there might be some role clashes between Apex and YEKINDAR. They are both quite aggressive players, and Dupree is also said to be one. So it might turn into a case of having too many aggressive players at once, but I wanted to mention them anyway because it could potentially happen. Don't think it's likely. I don't think they're gonna change any players right now, Vitality, but yeah, throwing them into the mix. Not going to be wasting too much time on this one. Copenhagen Flames gets a red X. They have, I think, the lowest salary, probably together with Spirit on this entire list, so they definitely can't afford YEKINDAR. They also speak Danish, and they don't look to be a team that wants to change unless some of their players leave. So this is just straight up not happening, and yeah, we don't need to spend more time on this. Astralis gets a question mark because they do have the funds to pick up YEKINDAR, but they obviously speak full Danish. There's also quite a bit of role overlap with Blame F. I could honestly see those two working together in tandem, simply because Blame F is so good at playing a sort of passive style, and YEKINDAR is so great at playing a very aggressive style. They could be playing bomb sites together, one sort of setting up the other, but this one is also extremely unlikely, so the only reason for the question mark is because it could work in theory, but I don't think it's ever realistic. None of the parties are interested in each other. The last line of defense is Team Liquid, who do have the funds to pick up YEKINDAR. Not only that, they are an English-speaking team as they are an American-based organization. I also do think Shox has been rumored to be out of this team already, but if not, it is clear that he is not a good fit for this Team Liquid side, who are probably, no matter what, looking for a replacement. Role-wise, YEKINDAR could be a great fit for this team, as there aren't too many hyper-aggressive players in this team. Naf is a pretty balanced player, and I would say Elise is probably a little bit more on the aggressive side, but not of the kind that YEKINDAR is. So this is a really good fit for both parties. So in conclusion, we have 4 real contenders to pick up YEKINDAR. We have G2, Cloud9, Vitality and Team Liquid. G2 and Team Liquid have already been rumored to be in talks with YEKINDAR, so they seem like very likely targets. For YEKINDAR personally, I think the best team he could end up in is G2. But I think who stands to gain the most from adding YEKINDAR to their roster, we're talking about Cloud9 and Team Liquid. I hope that clears up the confusion about YEKINDAR's future. Thank you so much for watching the video.